The sun has not yet broken the horizon, but Timbuktu is already stirring. In the courtyard of the Songhai Mosque, a young scholar named Ibrahim sits cross-legged on a woven mat, his fingers tracing lines of Arabic script across a precious manuscript. The paper crackles softly in the pre-dawn stillness. Around him, dozens of other students sit in similar postures, their voices rising and falling in rhythmic recitation. The Quran's verses echo off mud brick walls that have absorbed 1,000 such mornings. This is 1512, an era when most of Europe still struggles to recover from plague and war. But here, in this city, perched between desert and river, between Arab north and African south, knowledge flows like the Niger's waters. Ibrahim is one of 25,000 students studying in Timbuktu this year. The manuscripts in this library alone number in the hundreds of thousands. They contain mathematics that would astonish Italian merchants, astronomical calculations rivaling those of Cairo, poetry that would make Granada weep, and legal treatises debated from Fez to Mecca. But how did this happen? How did a city surrounded by sand become the intellectual heart of an empire larger than Western Europe? How did the Songhai Empire rise from the banks of the Niger to control the richest trade routes in Africa, and in doing so, create a golden age of learning that would echo across centuries?
Tonight, we will journey back 5 centuries to walk the streets of Timbuktu at its zenith. We will meet the scholars, the traders, the rulers who built an empire on gold and knowledge. We will witness the rise of Sunni Ali, the warrior who forged an empire from chaos. We will sit in the universities where Islamic scholarship reached heights unknown even in Baghdad. We will follow the salt and gold that made this desert crossroads wealthier than European kingdoms. And we will watch as this golden age, brilliant as it was brief, left a legacy that still whispers in manuscripts preserved by families who understood their worth long before the world rediscovered them. To understand Timbuktu, you must first understand the Niger River. It is Africa's 3rd longest river, but unlike the Nile or the Congo, it follows a strange path. Rising in the highlands near the Atlantic Ocean, it flows northeast, away from the sea, into the heart of the Sahara. There, in what seems like geographical madness, it turns and creates an enormous inland delta, spreading into hundreds of channels, lakes, and wetlands. Then it continues east before finally turning south to reach the ocean, 1,500 miles from where it began. This peculiar geography created something remarkable. Where the river bent northward into the desert, it brought water, fish, and fertile soil to the very edge of the Sahara. Traders crossing the desert from North Africa, their camels laden with salt and Mediterranean goods, reached this green ribbon of life just when their supplies ran low. Meanwhile, traders from the forest kingdoms to the south, carrying gold and cola nuts and enslaved people, arrived at the same convergence point. The Niger's Great Bend became the meeting place of 2 worlds. The people who lived along these fertile banks were many. The Songhai people gave their name to the empire, but they were part of a broader tapestry. The Mande peoples, master traders and farmers, controlled much of the region. The Fulani herders moved with their cattle along the river's seasonal patterns. The Tuareg, lords of the Sahara, brought salt and knowledge from the north. And increasingly, as Islam spread south across the desert,
Arab scholars and merchants added their threads to the weave. By the 13th century, a small kingdom had emerged along the river's eastern bend. The Songhai people, skilled fishermen and farmers, had established their capital at Gao. They lived in the shadow of the great Mali Empire, which controlled the gold trade and stretched from the Atlantic to the desert. Mali's most famous ruler, Mansa Musa, had made his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, displaying so much gold that he temporarily crashed Cairo's economy. The world took notice. Gold from West Africa became the standard currency of Mediterranean trade.
But empires, like rivers, change their course. By the late 1400s, Mali's power had begun to fragment. Regional governors became independent kings. Trade routes shifted. The great cities that had thrived under Mali's protection now found themselves vulnerable to raids from the Desert Tuareg and the Mossi kingdoms to the south. In Gao, the Songhai kingdom watched and waited. They had been tributary to Mali for generations, sending gold and loyalty to the distant capital. But as Mali weakened, ambitious men in Gao began to dream of something greater. The stage was set for a transformation that would reshape West Africa. The world into which our story unfolds is one of profound contrasts. In Timbuktu and Gao, mud brick architecture reaches heights of sophistication. The great mosques, built in the distinctive Sudanese style, with their protruding wooden beams and pyramidal towers, can hold thousands of worshippers. Wealthy merchants live in multi-story compounds with interior courtyards where fountains play. The houses stay remarkably cool even in the fierce Sahelian heat, thanks to thick walls and clever ventilation. But most people live more simply. A typical compound houses an extended family, perhaps 20 or 30 people. The walls are made of sun-dried mud bricks, plastered over and whitewashed when possible. Inside the compound walls, separate small structures serve different purposes: sleeping quarters, cooking area, storage for grain, shelter for goats. The roofs are flat or slightly domed, made of wooden beams covered with mud and thatch. During hot season, people sleep on these roofs under the stars. Daily life follows rhythms set by sun and season. The Niger floods annually between June and October. When the waters recede, they leave behind rich silt perfect for growing rice, millet, and sorghum. Farmers plant quickly, racing to harvest before the dry season returns. Fishermen work the river year-round, using intricate woven traps and dugout canoes. Their catch, catfish, tilapia, Nile perch, feeds the cities. Women do much of the agricultural work, working in collective groups, singing as they plant or harvest. They also manage household economies, trading surplus food in the markets. In the cities, women can own property, run businesses, and inherit wealth. This is not universal across all cultures in the region, but it is more common than in many other parts of the medieval world. Trade is the lifeblood of these societies. The most valuable commodity is salt. In the Sahara's heart, at places like Tagaza, enslaved workers mine rock salt from ancient lake beds. These salt blocks, some weighing as much as a man, are loaded onto camels for the grueling journey south. In the tropical forests where gold is found, salt is scarce and precious. A pound of salt might trade for a pound of gold.
The merchants who control both ends of this trade become fabulously wealthy. Gold comes from the forest regions to the south, from kingdoms like Akan and Lobi. The miners there work dangerous shafts and river gravels, extracting gold dust and nuggets. They guard their sources jealously. Even at the height of the Songhai Empire, the northern merchants never learn exactly where the gold mines are located. The trade happens at designated markets, with both sides maintaining careful secrecy. Between these extremes of salt and gold flow other goods. From the north come horses, crucial for warfare and status. Books and paper arrive from Egypt and Morocco. Glass beads, fine textiles, and metalwork from the Mediterranean find eager buyers. Going south, besides gold, there are kola nuts, a mild stimulant prized across the Sahel, copper from Saharan mines, leather goods, for which Timbuktu is especially famous, and enslaved people captured in wars or raids sent north to serve in households and armies from Marrakesh to Cairo. The people here are Muslim, though Islam has adapted to local traditions. 5 times daily, the call to prayer rises from minarets. But alongside Islamic practices, older beliefs persist. Offerings at sacred trees, consultations with traditional healers who read cowrie shells, spirit possession ceremonies that predate the Quran. The scholars debate these syncretisms endlessly, but for most people there is no contradiction. The old and new weave together as naturally as the Niger's channels. Education is highly valued. Even poor families try to send at least one son to Quranic school. He sits with other boys in the mosque courtyard, wooden writing board on his knees, repeating verses until they are memorized. The best students continue to higher learning, studying grammar, rhetoric, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and Islamic law. These advanced students might spend 20 years in study, moving between different teachers, traveling to other cities to learn from renowned scholars.
Books are treasures. A fine manuscript might cost as much as a good horse. Families accumulate private libraries, passing them down through generations. The wealthy commission copies of important works, employing scribes who spend months producing a single illuminated Quran or scholarly treatise. These books are status symbols, investments, and keys to knowledge all at once. The social hierarchy is complex. At the top sit the rulers and their families, who claim descent from prestigious lineages. Below them are the free merchants and scholars, the educated class, who manage trade, lead prayers, serve as judges, and teach in the universities. Then come free farmers and artisans, the backbone of society. Further down are specialized artisan castes, blacksmiths, leather workers, griots. Blacksmiths, who work with fire and iron, are both essential and somewhat feared, thought to possess dangerous spiritual powers. Griots, hereditary praise singers and oral historians, maintain the genealogies and histories of great families, their memories stretching back centuries.
At the bottom are enslaved people, captured in wars or born into bondage. Their status varies. Some work fields or mines in brutal conditions. Others serve in households and may eventually be freed or integrated into families. Some even rise to positions of influence. Enslaved soldiers become military commanders, enslaved scholars become advisors. The system is cruel and exploitative, yet more fluid than the racialized slavery that will later emerge across the Atlantic. This is the world that exists when our main story begins, a world of ancient trade routes and new learning, of camel caravans crossing impossible distances, of manuscripts traded for gold dust, of cities rising from dust and faith. It is a world balanced on the edge of transformation. In 1464, a man named Sunni Ali becomes king of the Songhai. He is in his 30s, already known as a fierce warrior and brilliant strategist. He has spent years fighting Mali's weakening armies, raiding Tuareg camps, consolidating power along the Niger. Now, with his coronation, he stands at the head of a kingdom that controls perhaps 200 miles of riverbank. Within 3 decades, he will forge an empire that stretches across 2,000 miles of West Africa. Sunni Ali does not look like a traditional king. He moves constantly, sleeping little, driving his armies with relentless energy. He is a master horseman, a skilled swordsman, and, his enemies whisper, a powerful sorcerer who can command the spirits. The Islamic scholars in Timbuktu regard him with suspicion. He prays, yes, and follows Islamic practices, but he also participates in traditional rituals, consults spirit mediums, and shows little patience for scholarly debates about religious law. A king must be many things, he tells his advisors, pious when in the mosque, fierce when in battle, cunning when trading. The scholars want me to spend my days debating Arabic grammar while Tuareg raiders steal our cattle and Mossi warriors burn our villages. I will secure the kingdom first, then we can discuss theology. His first major campaign targets the city of Timbuktu. For decades, the city has been under Tuareg control. The Berber warriors of the desert swept in years ago when Mali's power faltered, establishing their own rule. They tax the trade caravans heavily. Some scholars have fled to other cities. The great libraries remain, but the city's vitality has dimmed under foreign occupation. Sunni Ali moves swiftly. In 1468, his army appears before Timbuktu's gates. The Tuareg garrison is caught off guard. They expect negotiations, tribute demands, perhaps a siege. Instead, Sunni Ali's forces attack immediately. His cavalry, light horsemen armed with spears and javelins, circle the city, cutting off escape routes. His infantry advances with large leather shields, absorbing the defenders' arrows. The battle is brief but bloody. The Tuareg fight well, but they are outnumbered and unprepared. By nightfall, Sunni Ali's banner flies over the Songhai Mosque. He has taken the greatest city in the Sahel.
But victory brings problems. The scholars of Timbuktu are not happy with their new ruler. They remember Sunni Ali's reputation for mixing Islam with traditional beliefs. They expect him to support their schools and show proper deference to their learning. Instead, the new king seems more interested in military strategy and tax collection than theological debates. Worse, Sunni Ali is suspicious of them. He knows that scholars correspond with other cities, with Cairo and Fez and Tunis. He worries they might invite foreign intervention. When several prominent scholars speak out against his religious practices, questioning his legitimacy as a Muslim ruler, he responds harshly. Some scholars are imprisoned, others flee the city, a few are executed. The scholar Muhammad ibn Mahmud, writing years later, records these events with barely concealed disdain. Sunni Ali was a tyrant who killed many scholars and drove others into exile. He kept company with sorcerers and heeded the words of spirit mediums.
Yet Allah, in His wisdom, granted him victory after victory, and the kingdom expanded under his hand. Sunni Ali seems unconcerned by the scholar's disapproval. He has larger plans. With Timbuktu secured, he turns his attention to the empire's other great city, Djenné. Djenné sits in the heart of the Niger's inland delta, surrounded by waterways and seasonal floods. It is perhaps even older than Timbuktu, its origins lost in legend. The city controls the rice trade. Vast fields of irrigated rice feed much of the Sahel. Djenné is also a manufacturing center, producing distinctive terracotta sculptures, fine textiles, and metalwork. And like Timbuktu, it has become a center of Islamic learning with its own scholars and libraries. But Djenné has never submitted to Songhai rule. Protected by water and marshland, it has maintained independence even when Mali was strong. The city's walls are formidable, its people are wealthy and proud. They see no reason to bow to this upstart king from Gao. Sunni Ali arrives with his army in 1473. But taking Djenné will not be like taking Timbuktu. The city cannot be rushed. Cavalry is useless in the flooded terrain. The walls are too strong for quick assault. So Sunni Ali settles in for a siege. The siege lasts 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days, or so the chroniclers claim. The truth is probably less poetic, but no less grueling. Sunni Ali builds a fortified camp. He controls the surrounding farmlands, starving the city of supplies. His boats blockade the waterways. Meanwhile, he continues to campaign elsewhere, returning periodically to press the siege. Inside Djenné, conditions deteriorate. Food runs short, disease spreads. The wealthy begin to hoard supplies, while the poor go hungry. Religious leaders debate whether continued resistance serves any purpose. Finally, in 1480 or 81, the city negotiates surrender. The terms are surprisingly generous. Djenné will keep its local rulers and its traditions. It will pay tribute to Songhai and provide soldiers when needed. In return, Sunni Ali guarantees the city's merchants access to his entire empire, protection from raiders, and respect for its Islamic institutions. With Djenné's submission, the basic structure of the Songhai Empire is complete. Sunni Ali controls 3 great cities, Gao, Timbuktu, and Djenné, and the vital trade routes connecting them. He dominates nearly 1,500 miles of the Niger River. His cavalry can strike anywhere in the Sahel within weeks. His boats control river commerce. He has created something unprecedented in scale. But Sunni Ali is not finished. For the next decade, he campaigns relentlessly. He drives the Mossi raiders back from the empire's southern borders, burning their towns and enslaving thousands. He chases Tuareg bands deep into the Sahara, securing the northern approaches. He absorbs smaller kingdoms along the Niger, adding them to his empire through conquest or intimidation. The king ages rapidly under this constant warfare. His hair goes white. His body accumulates scars from dozens of battles, but his energy never flags. He is always moving, always fighting, always expanding. His soldiers follow him with devotion bordering on worship. They believe he cannot be killed in battle, that spirits protect him, that his victories are foreordained. In 1492, the same year Columbus reaches the Americas, Sunni Ali drowns crossing a flooded river. He is around 60 years old, still active, still campaigning. The circumstances are unclear. Some say it was simply an accident. Others whisper about spirits claiming their due or enemies seizing an opportunity. His body is recovered and buried according to tradition, though not entirely according to Islamic law, another source of tension with the scholarly class. His son, Sunni Baru, assumes power, but Sunni Baru makes a critical error. He announces that he will continue his father's religious policies, including maintaining traditional practices alongside Islam. This is too much for one of Sunni Ali's generals, a man named Muhammad Touré, who is deeply devout and well connected to the scholarly class. Within months, Muhammad Touré rebels. In a brief but decisive campaign, he defeats Sunni Baru and seizes the throne. He takes the title Askia, meaning the forceful one. History will know him as Askia Muhammad the Great, and under his rule, the Songhai Empire will reach its cultural and intellectual zenith. Askia Muhammad is a very different kind of ruler than Sunni Ali. Where Sunni Ali was a warrior first, Muhammad is a statesman. He is deeply learned, able to debate theology with the scholars. He's a skilled administrator, reorganizing the empire's government into a more structured system. And crucially, he understands the importance of legitimacy, both political and religious. One of his first acts is to announce a pilgrimage to Mecca. This is brilliant politics. By making the Hajj, he demonstrates his Islamic devotion, silencing critics who might question his religious credentials. He also follows the example of Mansa Musa, Mali's most famous ruler, linking himself to that earlier golden age. And practically, the journey allows him to establish diplomatic relations with the Islamic world's power centers. Askia Muhammad departs from Mecca in 1497 with an enormous entourage. Chroniclers claim he takes 800 camels, many carrying gold. Thousands of people accompany him: soldiers, servants, scholars, merchants. The journey takes 2 years. Along the way, he stops in Cairo, meeting with the Mamluk Sultan. He visits Jerusalem. He spends months in the Hejaz, studying with scholars, performing his religious duties, and networking with merchants and diplomats. In Mecca, he is appointed as Caliph for West Africa by the Sharif, a tremendous honor that grants him religious authority throughout the region. When he returns to Gao in 1499, he brings with him not just religious prestige, but also practical knowledge. He has recruited scholars from Egypt and the Hejaz to come to Songhai. He has established trade agreements with North African merchants. He has learned about administrative systems used in Cairo and Damascus. Now Askia Muhammad begins restructuring his empire. He divides it into provinces, each governed by an appointed official. These governors collect taxes, maintain order, and provide soldiers when required. But they serve at the Askia's pleasure and can be removed if they prove incompetent or rebellious. This is a significant departure from the earlier system where local rulers maintained considerable autonomy. He reforms the tax system, standardizing rates and improving collection. A portion of revenues goes to supporting scholars and schools. He establishes a central treasury in Gao, carefully tracking income and expenditures. He creates a standing army, professional soldiers who train year-round rather than farmers called up for campaigns. This army includes cavalry, infantry, and a river fleet of war canoes. He also pays careful attention to the scholarly class. Unlike Sunni Ali, who viewed scholars with suspicion, Askia Muhammad showers them with patronage. He funds the construction of new mosques and madrasas. He provides stipends to prominent scholars, allowing them to focus on teaching and writing. He invites renowned scholars from North Africa to settle in Timbuktu and Jannah, offering them houses, libraries, and positions of honor. The result is an intellectual explosion. By 1500, Timbuktu has become one of the Islamic world's great centers of learning, comparable to Cairo, Fez, or Damascus. The Songhai Mosque's madrasa alone hosts hundreds of advanced students. The city has two other major universities, Niger River and Sidi Yahya, plus dozens of smaller schools and hundreds of private scholars who teach from their homes. Let us step inside one of these scholarly households. It is mid-morning in 1512, the same morning we began with. The house belongs to Ahmad Baba, though at this point he is only a young student. He will later become one of West Africa's most famous scholars, but now he is just 20 years old, studying under his uncle.
Ahmad Baba sits in a small room lined with books. The collection includes works his family has accumulated over generations, plus texts he has borrowed from his teachers. He is currently working through a commentary on Islamic law written by a North African scholar 2 centuries ago. The text is dense, the arguments complex. He reads slowly, occasionally stopping to consult other books for context. This single page he is reading took a scribe perhaps an hour to copy. The paper itself was made in Fez from linen rags, then carried across the Sahara by camel, a journey of months. The ink is lamp black mixed with gum arabic. If Ahmad Baba wanted to own this book rather than borrow it, it would cost him roughly what a good horse costs. Books are that valuable. But Ahmad Baba's family can afford it. His uncle is a successful merchant scholar, trading in books and legal services. His grandfather was a scholar before him. The family library contains perhaps 300 volumes, a respectable collection, though far from the largest in Timbuktu. Some families own thousands of books. The city's total collection might reach into the hundreds of thousands of manuscripts.
What do these books contain? The subjects are remarkably diverse. Religious texts, naturally, Qurans, Hadith collections, theological treatises. Islamic law is heavily represented, with commentaries upon commentaries analyzing every aspect of Sharia. But there is also poetry, both classical Arabic and newer works composed in Timbuktu, history and biography, grammar and rhetoric, logic and philosophy, including translations of Aristotle and works by Islamic philosophers like Ibn Sina and Al-Ghazali. The sciences are well represented. Mathematical texts teaching algebra, geometry, and arithmetic, astronomical works with detailed tables for calculating planetary positions, lunar phases, and prayer times, medical manuscripts describing diseases, treatments, and surgical procedures, botanical and zoological texts, some describing African species unknown in the Middle East. Geography and travel literature circulate widely. Scholars here know the shape of Africa better than most Europeans. They have maps. They correspond with scholars in Cairo and Timbuktu and Marrakesh, sharing information about routes, cities, and peoples. They know about the Swahili coast and the kingdoms of Ethiopia. Some have heard rumors of lands far to the east across the Indian Ocean.
The teaching method is traditional. A student selects a text and a teacher known for expertise in that subject. The teacher reads through the text line by line, explaining difficult passages, adding context, bringing in related works. The student memorizes key sections and takes notes. This might continue for months or years, depending on the text's complexity. When finished, the teacher grants the student an ijazah, a certificate confirming the student has mastered that particular text and is qualified to teach it to others.
These ijazas create intellectual lineages stretching back centuries. Ahmad Baba's teacher learned from someone who learned from someone who studied in Cairo, who learned from a scholar whose ijaza traces back to the great Islamic scholars of the 9th and 10th centuries. This chain of transmission, isnad, is crucial for establishing credibility. A scholar with ijazas from multiple prestigious teachers carries significant authority. But learning is not confined to formal study. The mosques host public lectures where prominent scholars address current controversies. The markets buzz with debate, traders arguing fine points of commercial law, students testing each other on memorized texts. Wealthy patrons sponsor scholarly salons where thinkers gather to discuss new ideas over mint tea and dates. The legal profession is particularly important. Timbuktu needs judges, qadis, to resolve disputes according to Islamic law. Commercial cases are common, disagreements over contracts, debt collection, inheritance divisions, partnership dissolutions. The complexity of trans-Saharan trade generates endless legal questions. When a caravan loses goods to bandits, who bears the loss? If a merchant dies on the road, how should his estate be divided among heirs in different cities? What interest rates are permissible? How should currency exchanges be calculated? Criminal cases also come before the qadis: theft, assault, murder, adultery. Each must be judged according to Sharia with proper evidence and witnesses. The punishments can be severe: amputation for theft, stoning for adultery, execution for murder. But the legal standards are high. Many cases are resolved through compensation rather than physical punishment. The most successful qadis become wealthy and influential. They collect fees for their judgments. Powerful families seek their daughters in marriage. Rulers consult them on policy matters. Some qadis accumulate large private libraries and teach students on the side. They form a kind of intellectual aristocracy, their status based on learning rather than birth or military prowess.
Women participate in this intellectual life, though less visibly than men. Some women become scholars, particularly in the field of Quranic recitation and memorization. They teach other women and girls, sometimes boys as well. A few achieve renown for their learning. More commonly, women from scholarly families are educated enough to manage libraries, copy manuscripts, and participate in family discussions. The daughter of a prominent scholar might inherit part of his library and use that collection to establish her own teaching practice. The famous scholar Ahmad Baba will later write that his family library contained 1,600 books, many inherited from his mother's side of the family. This suggests that women could own and transmit scholarly property, playing a crucial role in preserving intellectual traditions across generations. Meanwhile, commerce continues to drive the empire's prosperity. Timbuktu's markets overflow with goods from across the known world. From North Africa come horses, dates, figs, glass beads, and fine textiles. Silk from Granada, wool from Morocco. From the Mediterranean regions come books, paper, iron tools, and copper. The Sahara itself produces salt, of course, but also carnelian and other gemstones mined from desert outcrops.
From the forest kingdoms to the south flow gold, of course, but also enslaved peoples, ivory, exotic animal skins, cola nuts, and shea butter. The gold alone is staggering. European merchants estimate that 2/3 of the gold reaching the Mediterranean comes from West Africa. This gold funds kingdoms from Spain to Egypt. It mints coins in Venice and Genoa. It adorns churches and mosques from London to Damascus. The merchants who facilitate this trade are sophisticated businessmen. They use credit extensively. A merchant in Timbuktu might draw a letter of credit payable in Cairo or Fez, trusting that his reputation and family connections will guarantee payment. They form partnerships, pooling capital for major ventures. They employ factors and agents in distant cities, creating commercial networks spanning thousands of miles. Currency is diverse. Gold dust is measured by weight and purity. Cowrie shells imported from the Indian Ocean serve as small change. Salt blocks have standard sizes and values. Cloth of certain lengths can function as currency. For major transactions, merchants use bills of exchange rather than moving physical gold or goods. The caravans that move these goods are major undertakings. A typical trans-Saharan caravan might include 1,000 camels or more. The journey from Timbuktu to Morocco takes 2 to 3 months, depending on routes and conditions. Water is the limiting factor. Caravan leaders must know every well, every oasis, every place where seasonal rains might create temporary pools. A mistake means death for men and camels alike. The caravans travel in the cooler months, avoiding summer's killing heat. They move mostly at night when temperatures drop and stars provide navigation. During the day, they rest in whatever shade can be found or created. The camel drivers are typically Tuareg, masters of desert travel. They navigate by stars, by wind patterns, by subtle changes in sand color and texture that indicate direction. Along the routes, certain stops become regular stations. At Tagaza, the salt mines provide both cargo and a brutal way station. Workers there, mostly enslaved, live in houses built from salt blocks. They eat dates and millet brought from the south, drinking water drawn from deep wells. The work is backbreaking and dangerous. The mine's owners, typically Tuareg tribes, grow rich from the trade, while the miners labor in one of the world's harshest environments. At Uwalata and other oasis towns, merchants rest and resupply. These towns serve as customs stations where Songhai officials collect taxes on goods passing through. The tax rate is generally reasonable, 5 to 10% of value, but enforcement is strict. Attempting to evade customs can result in confiscation of goods and imprisonment. The empire's wealth allows Askia Muhammad to maintain power through patronage and military strength. He continues expanding, though more methodically than Sunni Ali. He campaigns against the Mosque kingdoms, securing the southern frontier. He sends expeditions into the Sahara, bringing more oasis towns under Songhai control. He even sends diplomatic embassies to Morocco and Egypt, establishing formal relations with those powers. But his greatest achievement is establishing a stable governmental system. When he grows old, he rules until 1528, dying in his 80s. The transition of power follows established procedures. His son, Askia Musa, succeeds him peacefully. Though later Askias will not all be as capable, the administrative structure holds. The empire continues functioning, taxes are collected, trade flows, and the universities thrive.
This is the Golden Age. For roughly 50 years, from around 1500 to 1550, the Songhai Empire functions at peak efficiency. The empire is at peace internally with only border conflicts to manage. Trade reaches unprecedented volumes. The universities produce scholars whose works circulate from Timbuktu to Mecca and beyond. Books are written that will be studied for centuries. Legal precedents are established that guide West African jurisprudence for generations. In Timbuktu, the scholarly life has become institutionalized. The city now has a clear hierarchy of learning. Young students begin with Quranic memorization, typically starting around age 7. Those who show promise continue to grammar and basic arithmetic. The best students progress to studying hadith, Islamic law, logic, and rhetoric. Finally, the elite few study advanced subjects like theology, philosophy, astronomy, and medicine. A full education might take 20 years. Students support themselves through family wealth, patron stipends, or by teaching younger students. They move between teachers, sometimes traveling to Jen or Gao or even to Morocco to study with particular scholars. By the time they complete their education, they carry ijazas from multiple teachers in various subjects, marking them as qualified scholars in their own right.
The curriculum is standardized but flexible. Certain texts are considered essential, the Quran, naturally, plus key hadith collections, foundational works on grammar and rhetoric, and core legal texts. But beyond these basics, students can specialize according to interest and teacher availability. Some focus on mysticism and Sufism. Others emphasize legal studies. Some pursue medicine or astronomy. The system allows for considerable individual variation within a shared framework. Teaching methods emphasize memorization and analysis. Students commit vast amounts of text to memory, the entire Quran being just the starting point. They then analyze these memorized texts, learning to extract meaning, identify arguments, compare interpretations. The goal is not just knowledge, but wisdom, the ability to apply learning to real-world situations. Debate is crucial. Students engage in formal disputations, arguing points of law or theology before audiences. A student might defend a particular legal interpretation, while another attacks it, with the teacher mediating and correcting errors. These debates are public events attended by other students and interested community members. Success in debate marks a scholar as intellectually formidable. The scholars also write. Timbuktu's scribes produce new manuscripts constantly, commentaries on existing works, original treatises on law or theology, biographical dictionaries of scholars, local histories, poetry collections. These works are copied and distributed, finding readers across West Africa and beyond. Some manuscripts make their way to North Africa and the Middle East, where they contribute to broader Islamic intellectual discourse. One genre that flourishes is the tafsir, Quran commentary. Timbuktu's scholars write detailed verse-by-verse analyses, drawing on earlier commentaries, but also adding their own insights and local examples. These works are technically sophisticated, engaging with linguistic nuances in Arabic, discussing variant readings, exploring theological implications. They represent the highest level of Islamic scholarship. Legal writing is even more prolific. Scholars produce fatwas, formal legal opinions on every imaginable topic. Can a merchant charge interest if he calls it a fee? How should inheritance be divided when the deceased has children by multiple wives? What compensation is due when someone's camel damages another's property? Is it permissible to sell books written by heretics? These fatwas are collected, copied, and studied, forming a body of West African Islamic jurisprudence. Historical writing captures the empire's story for posterity. The most important chronicle is the Tariq al-Sudan, History of the Sudan, written by Abd al-Rahman al-Sadi in the mid-17th century.
Al-Sadi draws on earlier works and oral traditions to create a comprehensive history of the Songhai Empire and its predecessors. His work describes rulers, battles, scholars, and daily life. It is our single most valuable source for understanding this period. Another crucial text is the Tariq al-Fatash, Chronicle of the Researcher, attributed to Mahmud Kati and his family. This work provides different perspectives on the same events, sometimes contradicting al-Sadi, giving historians valuable comparative material. Together, these chronicles paint a vivid picture of the empire at its height. Poetry flourishes as well. Scholars compose verses in classical Arabic, following ancient forms but addressing contemporary themes. Some poetry is devotional, praise for the Prophet, celebrations of Islamic holidays, meditations on faith. Other poems praise patrons, commemorate events, or express personal emotions. The best poetry is memorized and recited, adding to the oral culture that complements the written word.
Medicine is another field where Timbuktu's scholars contribute. They translate and copy medical texts from earlier Islamic physicians like Ibn Sina, Avicenna, and Razis. But they also develop local medical knowledge, describing diseases specific to West Africa, documenting local medicinal plants, developing treatments suited to regional conditions. A Timbuktu physician treats malaria with various herbs, some effective against the disease's symptoms. He sets broken bones using splints and bindings. He performs minor surgeries, removing tumors, treating wounds, even doing cataract operations. He diagnoses illness through examining urine, feeling pulses, observing symptoms. His methods blend Islamic medical theory with practical experience and local plant knowledge. Astronomy and mathematics serve practical purposes. Scholars calculate prayer times precisely for Timbuktu's latitude. They determine the direction of Mecca for prayer. They track the lunar calendar for religious observances. They develop tables for calculating planetary positions. Some of this work is quite sophisticated, engaging with advanced geometric and algebraic concepts.
But Timbuktu is not just a scholarly enclave detached from worldly concerns. The city hums with commercial activity. The markets are as important as the mosques. Indeed, many scholars are also merchants, using their literacy and numeracy in business, leveraging their international contacts to facilitate trade. The boundary between commercial and intellectual life is fluid. A typical day in Timbuktu begins before dawn. The first call to prayer echoes from the mosques while the city still lies in darkness. Devout Muslims rise to perform Fajr, the dawn prayer. After praying, many return to sleep for an hour or two before the city fully wakes. As the sun rises, the streets fill with people. Women carry water from wells. Children head to Quranic schools. Merchants open their shops. Craftsmen begin their work. Leather workers cutting and stitching. Weavers at their looms. Blacksmiths heating forges. The smell of breakfast cooking drifts from compounds. Millet porridge, fried dough, dates, tea. By mid-morning, the markets are in full swing. The book market is distinct from the food market, which is separate from the livestock market. Specialized merchants deal in specific goods. One man sells only leather goods, another only iron tools, a third only medicinal herbs. Buyers know where to find what they need. The leather market is particularly famous. Timbuktu's leather workers produce beautifully decorated bags, sandals, book covers, and saddles. They dye leather in rich colors: yellow, red, green, black.
They emboss intricate geometric patterns. They create leather cushions stuffed with straw for sitting. Some of this work is exported, finding buyers as far away as Egypt and Morocco. Food vendors sell cooked meals, spiced rice, millet cakes, fish stew, roasted meat. The smell is intoxicating. Workers break from their labor to eat quick meals. Wealthier residents send servants to bring food back to their compounds. The food itself reflects the region's diversity. West African staples like millet and rice, North African spices and cooking techniques, fish from the Niger, meat from herds, vegetables from gardens.
Water is precious, but managed carefully. Timbuktu's wells tap into aquifers far below the surface. Water sellers fill leather bags and sell them throughout the city. Some wealthy compounds have private wells. During the dry season, water becomes expensive. During the brief rainy season, cisterns fill, providing relief. The heat is intense from March to June before the rains come. Buildings are designed to manage this. Thick walls, small windows, interior courtyards that create cooling air currents. People take siestas during the worst heat, resuming activity in late afternoon when temperatures moderate slightly. Night is pleasant, almost cool, with brilliant stars overhead in the clear desert air. Clothing varies by status and culture. Scholars and qadis typically wear long white robes and turbans, practical for the heat and appropriate for their dignity. Merchants dress similarly, but might add more color or decoration. Common people wear simpler garments, loose tunics, wrapped cloths. Tuareg visitors are distinctive in their indigo-dyed clothing, the dye rubbing off on their skin, giving them a blue tint. Women's clothing varies by family tradition. Some cover extensively, others more casually, reflecting the range of Islamic practice.
Families are extended and complex. A compound might house a man, his multiple wives, Islamic law permits up to 4, their children, unmarried siblings, elderly parents, and sometimes more distant relatives. Privacy is limited, but not absent. Separate structures within the compound provide spaces for different activities and relationships. Marriages are arranged, typically within the same social class. Scholars marry scholars' daughters. Merchants marry merchants' daughters. These alliances strengthen family networks and consolidate wealth. Dowries and bride prices are negotiated carefully. Weddings are major celebrations involving gifts, feasts, and displays of family status. Children begin learning their future roles early. Boys from scholarly families start memorizing Quran as soon as they can speak. Merchant sons accompany their fathers to markets, learning by observation. Artisan children begin practicing crafts at young ages. A blacksmith's son works the bellows. A weaver's daughter learns to prepare thread. Gender roles are clear, but not absolute. Some women trade independently. Some become healers or teachers. Most manage complex household economies that require considerable skill.
Slavery remains a fundamental part of the social structure, though its forms vary. Some enslaved people work in harsh conditions: salt mines, gold mining, agricultural labor. Others serve in households, often eventually being absorbed into families. Enslaved soldiers form elite military units with prospects for advancement. Enslaved scholars might teach their masters' children and advise on intellectual matters. The trade in enslaved people is substantial. Raiders capture people in wars or deliberate slave hunting expeditions, particularly targeting regions outside the empire's borders. These captives are marched to markets in cities like Gao and Timbuktu, sold and often sent north across the Sahara to serve in North African and Middle Eastern households. The mortality rate on these marches is horrific. Many die from exhaustion, dehydration, or mistreatment. Islamic law provides some protections. Enslaved Muslims should not be sold to non-Muslims. Families should not be separated. Certain forms of mistreatment are forbidden. But these rules are often ignored in practice. The economic incentives are too strong. Slavery generates enormous profits for raiders, traders, and the state, which taxes the trade.
This is the empire's dark foundation. The gold and scholarship and architectural splendor rest partially on the backs of enslaved people who extract gold from dangerous mines, who carry goods across deserts, who build the buildings and make the leather and work the fields. It is a moral stain that no amount of learning can erase. Yet life continues in its complexities. Most people in the empire are neither enslaved nor wealthy. They are farmers working small plots, herders following seasonal patterns, craftsmen producing goods, petty traders, fishermen, laborers. They live modestly, work hard, hope for better futures for their children. They attend mosque prayers, participate in festivals, tell stories in the evenings, worry about harvests and health. The empire's religious life is vibrant. The 5 daily prayers structure each day. The Friday sermon at the main mosque is a major community event, with the imam addressing hundreds or thousands of worshippers. Religious festivals mark the year: Ramadan's fasting month, Eid al-Fitr's celebration, Eid al-Adha's sacrifices, Mawlid celebrating Muhammad's birth.
But beneath Islamic orthodoxy, older beliefs persist. Many people visit traditional healers alongside Islamic physicians. They make offerings at sacred trees and springs. They consult diviners about auspicious days for travel or marriage. They wear protective amulets that blend Quranic verses with pre-Islamic symbols. The scholars frown on these practices, but cannot eliminate them. Folk Islam and ancient traditions coexist, sometimes uneasily. This cultural synthesis appears in other forms, too. The music played at celebrations often uses traditional instruments: the kora, a 21-stringed harp, the balafon, a wooden xylophone, drums of various sizes. The rhythms and melodies predate Islam, but the songs might praise Allah or recount Islamic history, blending form and content from different traditions. The griots maintain oral histories that stretch back centuries. They memorize genealogies of important families, recount great battles, preserve founding myths. These oral traditions supplement written histories, sometimes contradicting them, always adding texture and detail. A griot can recite for hours, singing of ancient heroes, of the empire's founding, of wars and migrations, and legendary events.
Art manifests in distinctive forms. The architecture itself is art: the great mosques with their organic mud brick forms, the geometric patterns in plasterwork, the elegant functionality of design adapted to climate. Textiles display intricate patterns in bold colors. Leather goods feature stamped and dyed decorations. Metalwork includes both practical items and decorative pieces. But there is relatively little sculpture or representational art. Islamic traditions generally discourage depicting living things, and this influences local artistic expression. Instead, abstract patterns dominate: geometric designs based on mathematical principles, calligraphy turned into visual art, architectural forms that create beauty through proportion and texture rather than representation.
The empire's cultural reach extends far beyond Timbuktu. Djenné remains a major center, its distinctive architecture and ancient traditions complementing Timbuktu's scholarship. Gao, the capital, is a more military and administrative city, but also hosts scholars and libraries. Smaller towns along the Niger, Niafunke, Kabara, Bamba, participate in the broader intellectual and commercial networks.
The empire also maintains diplomatic relations beyond West Africa. Ambassadors travel to Morocco, presenting gifts and negotiating trade agreements. Scholars correspond with peers in Cairo, Fez, and Tunis, exchanging manuscripts and intellectual ideas. Merchants create networks stretching from the Atlantic to the Red Sea. The Songhai Empire is not isolated, but connected to the broader Islamic world. Yet the empire faces challenges. The Askias after Muhammad are less capable. Court intrigues multiply. Succession disputes become violent. Provincial governors grow semi-independent, remitting less tax revenue to Gao. The Tuareg and Mossi resume raiding borderlands. And to the north, a new power is rising, Morocco. Morocco in the late 16th century is ruled by the Saadian dynasty, which has unified the country and driven Portuguese forces from coastal cities. The Saadians look south with ambition. They want control of the gold trade, they want access to the salt mines, and they possess something the Songhai lack: firearms.
The Songhai Empire does not ignore this threat. The Askia knows Morocco has interest in the south, but the Sahara seems like sufficient protection. No foreign army has ever successfully crossed the desert in force. The logistics are daunting: water, food, navigation, heat. The Songhai feel secure behind this natural barrier. They are wrong. In 1591, Sultan Ahmed al-Mansur of Morocco launches an audacious gamble. He assembles an army of 4,000 men, a mix of Moroccan soldiers, Andalusian refugees from recently conquered Granada, and European mercenaries. Crucially, many are armed with arquebuses and muskets. They carry gunpowder and shot. They bring light cannons. The commander is a Spanish eunuch named Judar Pasha. He is ruthless and experienced. He understands desert warfare. He knows this expedition is risky. Perhaps half the army may die crossing the Sahara, but the potential reward is enormous. Control of the trans-Saharan gold trade could make Morocco the richest kingdom in North Africa.
The Moroccan army crosses the Sahara in 4 months. It is a nightmare march. Water runs short repeatedly. Men die from thirst and heat. Dozens of horses perish. But Judar Pasha drives them forward, using his knowledge of the routes, his harsh discipline, and sheer force of will. They survive. In early 1591, the Moroccans emerge from the Sahara near Gao. The Songhai are shocked. How did a foreign army cross the desert? How did they survive? The Askia quickly assembles his forces. Reports suggest between 20 and 40,000 men. The Songhai have cavalry, infantry, riverboats. What they lack are firearms. The armies meet at Tondibi, near Gao. The Songhai vastly outnumber their enemies. Their cavalry looks magnificent, thousands of horsemen with spears and swords. But when they charge, the Moroccans open fire. The arquebuses crack like thunder. The light cannons boom. Horses scream and fall. Men die in heaps. The Songhai cavalry retreats in disorder.
The infantry advances next. They too are met with volleys of shot. The noise is deafening. The smoke obscures vision. Men accustomed to spear and sword combat face weapons they do not understand. The psychological impact is as devastating as the physical casualties. Within hours, the Songhai army breaks and flees. The Askia escapes, but his authority is shattered. The Moroccans march into Gao unopposed. They loot the city, seizing gold, slaves, and goods. Then they move to Timbuktu. The city opens its gates without resistance. The scholars remember what happened when they resisted Sunni Ali. they do not wish to repeat that experience. Judar Pasha enters Timbuktu in March 1591. His soldiers, exhausted and depleted, expect rest and reward. They begin systematically looting the city. They break into private homes, seizing books, gold, and valuables. They demand ransoms from wealthy families. They enslave some residents and kill others who resist.
The scholars suffer particularly. Many are arrested on suspicion of hoarding gold or supporting resistance. Ahmad Baba, now in his 60s and one of Timbuktu's most respected scholars, is imprisoned. The Moroccans seize his magnificent library, 1,600 books accumulated over generations. Most are lost or destroyed. Only a fraction survive. In 1594, Ahmad Baba and other prominent scholars are marched across the Sahara to Morocco. It is a brutal journey. Some scholars die on the way. Those who survive are held in Marrakesh, where Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur tries to gain legitimacy by patronizing these famous scholars. Ahmad Baba lives there for 14 years before being allowed to return to Timbuktu. He finds his city changed, diminished, its golden age over. The Moroccan conquest does not restore order. The invaders establish a garrison and collect taxes, but they never fully control the empire's vast territory. Local rulers assert independence. Trade routes shift away from Moroccan-controlled areas. The Tuareg resume raiding. The Mossi push north. The empire fragments into competing factions.
The Moroccan soldiers in Songhai, the Arma as they come to be called, gradually become a distinct ethnic group. They intermarry with locals. They adopt local customs while maintaining military privileges. They form their own ruling class, neither fully Moroccan nor fully Songhai. Their descendants will dominate the region for centuries, but they never recreate the empire's former glory. The trans-Saharan gold trade continues, but at reduced volumes. New trade routes emerge as Europeans begin trading directly with West African coastal kingdoms. The discovery of American silver reduces gold's relative importance. The commercial networks that made Timbuktu wealthy gradually shift away. The scholarly institutions survive, but are diminished. Some great teachers still attract students. Private libraries remain in family hands. Books are still copied and studied. But the institutional support is gone. The patronage networks have collapsed. Scholars must support themselves through trade or teaching small groups. The days of 25,000 students studying in Timbuktu are over.
Yet, something remarkable happens. The manuscript tradition survives. Families who own books guard them fiercely, refusing to sell even when desperately poor. They understand that these manuscripts represent not just knowledge, but identity, heritage, connection to a glorious past. They preserve them through decades and centuries of decline, poverty, and foreign rule. Some families hide manuscripts in chests, burying them underground to protect from raiders. Others wall them up inside buildings. A few scatter their collections, distributing books among relatives to reduce risk. The manuscripts accumulate termite damage, water stains, and wear, but they survive. The years pass. Songhai becomes a name for a region rather than an empire. Other powers rise and fall in West Africa, the Bambara kingdoms, the Tukulor Empire, the Fulani jihads. European traders established posts on the coast. The slave trade intensifies, now sending captives across the Atlantic to horrific deaths in Caribbean and American plantations. The guns that destroyed the Songhai Empire become common, changing warfare across the continent. In the north, Morocco fragments into competing dynasties. The Sahara remains difficult and dangerous. Timbuktu becomes a backwater, known to Europeans only through legend and a few travelers' accounts. The legendary city of gold fades into myth. European cartographers place it speculatively on maps, unsure if it even exists.
In the 19th century, European explorers discover Timbuktu, expecting to find golden palaces and immense wealth. Instead, they find mud brick buildings, modest markets, and poverty. Some write dismissive accounts, calling Timbuktu disappointing, even fraudulent. They cannot see or understand what remains: the traditions, the manuscripts, the memory of greatness. A French explorer named René Callier reaches Timbuktu in 1828. He is the first European to arrive and return alive. He writes, "I looked around and found that the sight before me did not answer my expectations. I had formed a totally different idea of the grandeur and wealth of Timbuktu." He does not understand what he is seeing. He does not know about the manuscripts hidden in private libraries. He does not grasp the depth of learning that once flourished here. The 20th century brings colonialism. France conquers much of West Africa, incorporating the Songhai region into French West Africa. Colonial administrators view Timbuktu as a dusty outpost, strategically unimportant. They build administrative buildings and bring modern infrastructure, but they show little interest in the city's history.
But the manuscripts survive. Throughout colonialism, through independence in 1960, through droughts and coups and conflicts, the families guard their books. They know that outsiders, French collectors, Arab buyers, American universities, would pay enormous sums for these manuscripts. Some families do sell books, needing money for survival, but many refuse, understanding that once sold, the manuscripts are gone forever. In the late 20th century, scholars begin to rediscover and catalog these manuscripts. The Ahmed Baba Institute opens in Timbuktu, dedicated to preserving and studying the manuscripts. International experts arrive, astonished by what they find. Hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, maybe more, scattered across private libraries and family collections throughout the region. These are not just religious texts. They include scientific treatises, literary works, commercial records, personal correspondence. They document centuries of intellectual life in West Africa. They prove what oral tradition always knew, that Timbuktu was not just a city of gold, but a city of knowledge, that African scholars contributed significantly to Islamic civilization, that the stereotype of dark Africa has always been a racist lie.
The manuscripts reveal sophisticated scholarship. Mathematical works show advanced algebra and geometry. Astronomical texts include precise calculations. Medical manuscripts describe surgical procedures and pharmaceutical preparations. Legal works demonstrate nuanced understanding of Islamic jurisprudence. Historical chronicles provide detailed records of events. Ahmed Baba's surviving works alone fill multiple volumes. His commentaries on Islamic law are still studied by scholars today. His writings on logic and theology demonstrate mastery of complex philosophical arguments. He corresponded with scholars across the Islamic world, his letters showing he was recognized as a peer by the greatest minds of his era. But the manuscripts also reveal daily life. Commercial records show the mechanics of trans-Saharan trade, contract terms, debt records, partnership agreements. Personal letters discuss family matters, love affairs, disputes, and friendships. Teaching licenses document the transmission of knowledge across generations. Book ownership marks, names and dates written in margins, trace how manuscripts moved between owners.
The manuscripts are fragile. Termites have eaten through some pages. Water has dissolved ink in others. Desert heat has dried and cracked the paper. Handling over centuries has worn edges and loosened bindings. Conservation is urgent and expensive. International organizations fund preservation efforts. Digital scanning creates backup copies. Climate-controlled storage protects the originals. In 2012, conflict again threatens Timbuktu. Tuareg rebels and Islamist militants seize control of northern Mali, including Timbuktu. The militants view some of the manuscripts as heretical, Sufi texts, works on astrology, anything they consider un-Islamic. They begin destroying manuscripts and historical sites. But the librarians of Timbuktu act quickly. In secret, they pack manuscripts into footlockers and metal trunks. Using donkey carts, cars, and boats,
They smuggle roughly 380,000 manuscripts south to Bamako, Mali's capital. It is a dangerous operation. They risk being caught by militants. The manuscripts are heavy and fragile, but they succeed. When French and Malian forces retake Timbuktu in 2013, most manuscripts are safe in Bamako. A few thousand manuscripts are burned by the militants before they flee. It is heartbreaking, but could have been much worse. The evacuation saves centuries of accumulated knowledge. It proves that the tradition of protecting these books, of valuing knowledge, continues into the present day. Today, the manuscripts are gradually returning to Timbuktu. New libraries are being built, with better security and conservation facilities. Scholars from around the world come to study these texts, writing dissertations, publishing articles, slowly revealing the depth and breadth of West African intellectual history. The story of the Songhai Empire and Timbuktu's golden age is being rewritten. For too long, it was dismissed or ignored. Now, as the manuscripts are studied, a more complex and accurate picture emerges. We see an empire as sophisticated as any in medieval Europe, a scholarly tradition as rich as that of Islamic Spain or Egypt, an intellectual life that contributed significantly to global knowledge. But the manuscripts remind us of something else. History is fragile. Knowledge can be lost. Empires rise and fall. Cities that seemed eternal become dust. The books that survived did so because individuals, often at great personal cost, chose to preserve them. They understood that losing these manuscripts would mean losing more than just paper and ink. It would mean losing memory, identity, proof of who they were and what they achieved. Let us return one final time to that morning in 1512, when Ibrahim sat in the Sankor courtyard studying his manuscript. He could not have known what was coming, that within a generation foreign soldiers would storm through these streets, that scholars would be imprisoned or exiled, that the Golden Age was already reaching its twilight. But perhaps he sensed something, perhaps in the quiet dawn, with the Quran's verses echoing around him and the precious manuscript in his hands, he understood that knowledge itself is both fragile and enduring, that empires fall, but ideas survive, that buildings crumble, but books can be preserved, that the true treasure of Timbuktu was never gold, but always understanding.
Ibrahim's manuscript, if it survived the centuries, might sit today in one of Timbuktu's libraries. Perhaps a modern scholar holds it, reading the same words Ibrahim read 500 years ago. The ink has faded, the paper is brittle, but the knowledge endures. The thoughts of a 13th century jurist in Morocco, copied by a 15th century scribe in Cairo, studied by a 16th century student in Timbuktu, and now examined by a 21st century researcher, all connected across centuries by words on paper. This is the legacy of the Songhai Empire. Not the gold, though that was real. Not the military victories, though those shaped history. Not even the beautiful mosques, though they still stand as testimony to faith and craft. The true legacy is intellectual. The manuscripts that survived, the traditions of learning that persisted, the proof that Africa was never isolated or backward, but connected and sophisticated, contributing to human civilization in profound ways. The sun is setting now over Timbuktu. The call to prayer rises from the Sankor Mosque as it has for centuries. The mud brick buildings glow golden orange in the evening light. Tomorrow, scholars will again gather to study ancient texts. Students will memorize verses. Teachers will pass on knowledge. The tradition continues, unbroken, despite conquest, colonialism, and conflict.
In libraries around Timbuktu and beyond, the manuscripts wait. Some are well cared for, digitized, studied by scholars. Others remain in private collections, protected by families who inherited not just books, but responsibility. Still others are lost, buried somewhere, destroyed by time, waiting perhaps to be rediscovered. Each manuscript is a voice from the past. Each represents hours of labor by scribes who carefully formed each letter. Each was read by students who wrestled with difficult concepts. Each was treasured by owners who understood its value. And each survived against odds, escaping wars, neglect, termites, moisture, and human carelessness, to bear witness to a golden age. Askia Muhammad, who built the empire to its height, would barely recognize modern Timbuktu. The political structures he created are long gone. The trade routes have shifted. The wealth has dissipated. But the core of what he valued, learning, scholarship, the pursuit of knowledge, that survives. In that sense, his vision endures.
The Songhai Empire reminds us that history is not a simple story of progress or decline. Civilizations rise through combinations of geography, leadership, economic opportunity, and cultural synthesis. They fall through external conquest, internal weakness, environmental change, and sometimes simply bad luck. What matters is not just the rise and fall, but what survives: the ideas, the art, the knowledge, the human connections that transcend political structures. Timbuktu's golden age was real. For 50 or perhaps 80 years, depending on how you count, this desert city was a beacon of learning, comparable to any in the world. Scholars debated there whose arguments were as sophisticated as those in Oxford or Bologna. Libraries held books whose contents rivaled those of Alexandria or Baghdad. Students studied there who went on to become teachers, judges, advisors, continuing chains of knowledge that stretch to the present. That this happened in West Africa, along the Niger River, in mud brick buildings, far from Europe and the Middle East, that is significant. It challenges simplistic narratives about civilization flowing from advanced regions to primitive ones. It demonstrates that human intellectual achievement arises wherever conditions allow, where there is peace enough to think, wealth enough to support non-productive labor, tradition enough to value learning, and connection enough to access diverse ideas.
The Songhai Empire also reminds us of colonialism's damage. When European powers conquered Africa in the 19th century, they dismissed or destroyed much of what they encountered. They viewed African societies as primitive, without history, without achievement. They collected artifacts from museums while simultaneously devaluing African culture. They wrote histories that centered European experience while marginalizing African agency. The rediscovery of Timbuktu's manuscripts challenges these colonial narratives. Here is proof, physical, tangible, irrefutable, of African intellectual achievement. Here are hundreds of thousands of manuscripts proving that scholarship flourished, that science advanced, that literature was created, that complex societies existed. The manuscripts force a reconsideration of African history and Africa's place in world civilization. Yet even now, these narratives are contested. Some people remain skeptical, unable to accept evidence that contradicts deeply held assumptions. They question the manuscript's authenticity or significance. They minimize African contributions. They cling to racist frameworks that have been thoroughly disproven. The manuscripts sit in libraries, available for study, yet ignorance and prejudice persist.
This is why the work continues. Scholars must study and publish on these manuscripts. Educators must teach accurate history. The world must understand that Africa's contributions to human civilization were neither minimal nor derivative, but substantial and original. The Songhai Empire and Timbuktu's Golden Age are not footnotes, but central chapters in the human story. For the families who still guard private manuscript collections in Timbuktu and surrounding regions, the books are not just historical artifacts, they are inheritance, not material wealth, but cultural capital. They connect the living to ancestors who valued knowledge enough to devote their lives to its pursuit and preservation. They represent identity in a world that has often denied African peoples their history. When a father shows his children the family's manuscript collection, he is not just displaying old books. He is teaching them who they are, where they come from, what their ancestors achieved. He is passing on responsibility. These books must be protected for future generations. He is asserting dignity. We come from scholars, traders, leaders, not from nothing.
The manuscripts also raise practical questions. Who owns them? The families who have preserved them for centuries have moral claims, but many manuscripts were originally created with patronage funding or copied in institutional libraries. Some were stolen during various conflicts. Others were sold under duress. Determining ownership is complex. Should the manuscripts remain in Timbuktu or be moved to institutions with better preservation resources? Local communities want to keep their heritage, but climate and security challenges in Mali are real. Digital copies resolve some issues, but not all. The physical objects carry meanings that scans cannot replicate. These debates continue, balancing competing values and practical constraints. What is clear is that the manuscripts must be preserved. Whether in Timbuktu or Bamako, in family homes or institutional libraries, they must be protected, conserved, studied, and made accessible to researchers while respecting the communities that saved them. This requires funding, expertise, international cooperation, and local engagement. It is work that will continue for generations. Meanwhile, the manuscripts continue to reveal their secrets. Each one studied adds to our understanding. New dissertations are written, new books published, new courses taught. The story of the Songhai Empire and Timbuktu's golden age becomes richer and more complex as more sources are examined.
We now know, for instance, that women played larger roles in intellectual life than previously thought. We know that scientific work in Timbuktu was more advanced than realized. We know that commercial practices were highly sophisticated. We know that literary production was extensive and varied. Each manuscript adds pieces to a vast puzzle that will never be fully completed, but becomes clearer year by year. The empire's decline also teaches lessons. Military superiority is temporary. Firearms gave Morocco victory, but technology spreads. Today's advantage becomes tomorrow's standard. The Songhai Empire fell partly because it failed to adapt to changing military realities. Other empires would make similar mistakes. Economic dependence on single trade routes is risky. When European maritime trade offered alternatives to trans-Saharan caravans, Timbuktu's importance diminished. Diversification matters. Flexibility matters. Empires that cannot adapt to changing circumstances fade. Yet some things proved more enduring than empire. The scholarly tradition survived conquest. The manuscripts outlasted political structures. Knowledge persisted through chaos. This suggests that investing in education and culture provides returns beyond immediate economic or political benefits. A society's intellectual capital can outlive its material wealth.
The Songhai Empire story also complicates narratives about Islam in Africa. Sometimes Islam is portrayed as entirely foreign, imposed by Arab conquerors. But in West Africa, Islam was adopted gradually, adapted to local contexts, and became thoroughly African. Timbuktu's scholars were Africans studying Islamic texts, contributing to Islamic scholarship, creating distinctively African Islamic culture. Islam was not foreign, but integrated. This integration was not always smooth. Tensions between Islamic orthodoxy and traditional practices were real. Scholars sometimes clashed with rulers over religious policy. The mixing of Islam with older beliefs troubled purists. But this synthesis also allowed Islam to take root deeply, becoming part of local identity rather than remaining external. Today, millions of West Africans practice Islam that descends from traditions established during the Songhai period. The mosques built then still function. The scholarly lineages continue. The Quranic schools operate using methods developed centuries ago. Islam in West Africa is ancient, indigenous, and deeply rooted, not new or imposed, but historically established over many centuries.
The Songhai Empire also demonstrates that African societies have always been connected to broader world systems. Timbuktu was not isolated, but cosmopolitan, linked to North Africa, the Middle East, and beyond through trade, scholarship, and pilgrimage. Ideas flowed both directions. African scholars studied in Cairo and Damascus. North African merchants settled in Timbuktu. This was not one-way cultural transmission, but genuine exchange. Understanding this challenges both Afrocentric essentialism and Eurocentric dismissiveness. African civilizations were neither entirely independent nor merely derivative. They participated in broader networks while maintaining distinctive characteristics. They borrowed from other cultures and contributed their own innovations. This is normal. It is how all civilizations develop, through interaction and exchange. As night falls over modern Timbuktu, the city settles into quiet. The markets close. Families gather for evening meals. In the mosques, evening prayers are called. The ancient rhythms continue, much as they have for centuries. The city is poor by modern standards, facing challenges of development, security, and climate change. But it endures. In a small house in the old city, a family sits together after dinner. The grandfather tells stories about their ancestors, scholars and merchants who lived centuries ago. The children listen, some fascinated, others distracted by mobile phones, when electricity and signal permit. The grandmother brings out tea, its sweet mint aroma filling the room. Outside, the stars wheel overhead in patterns unchanged since Askia Muhammad ruled. This is perhaps the truest legacy of the Songhai Empire. Not monuments or military victories, but families who still live here, still value learning, still preserve manuscripts, still tell stories, still maintain connections to a golden age that was real. They are the threads connecting past to present, ensuring that the achievements of their ancestors are not forgotten. For all the loss and decline, something essential survived. The idea that knowledge matters, the belief that education is worthy pursuit, the commitment to preserving what earlier generations created, the understanding that identity comes not just from where you are, but from where you came from. These intangibles, passing from generation to generation, may be the empire's greatest legacy. Imagine Ibrahim, our young scholar from 1512, could somehow see Timbuktu today. He would not recognize the plastic, the vehicles, the electricity, the tourists with cameras. But he would recognize the mosques. He would recognize the manuscripts, faded and fragile, but still there. He would recognize the practice of scholarship, changed in methods, but continuous in purpose. He would recognize the value placed on learning. And he might understand that his time, his golden age, was not just about his own era's achievements.
It was also about creating something that could outlast empire, a tradition of learning, a collection of books, a community that values knowledge. His morning in the Sangkor courtyard was not just about studying one text, but about participating in something larger and more enduring than any political structure. This is what survives the rise and fall of empires: human connections, shared values, accumulated knowledge, traditions maintained across generations. The Songhai Empire fell, Timbuktu declined, but the idea of Timbuktu, a place where knowledge is treasured, where learning flourishes, where books are worth more than gold, that idea persists. It persists in the manuscripts carefully preserved in libraries. It persists in the scholars who study them, adding to our understanding. It persists in the students who still come to Timbuktu schools, seeking education in an ancient city. It persists in the families who maintain their ancestors' collections, understanding that heritage is responsibility.
And it persists in the telling of stories. When we speak of the Songhai Empire, when we study Timbuktu's manuscripts, when we teach about Askia Muhammad and Ahmad Baba, we are doing more than recording history. We are honoring those who came before, acknowledging their achievements, and ensuring their work was not in vain. For what use is a golden age if it is forgotten? What value has scholarship if its products are lost? What meaning does achievement have if later generations do not know about it? The manuscript preservers understood this. They kept the books not just as objects, but as testimony, proof that their ancestors were great, evidence of civilizations worthy of respect, connection to a past worth honoring. In preserving these manuscripts, they preserved dignity, they preserved identity, they preserved truth against forces that would prefer certain histories remain untold. And they preserved possibility, the possibility that future generations might learn from the past, might build on what came before, might create new golden ages informed by the old. The sun has set completely now. Timbuktu sleeps under the stars, the same stars that shone on camel caravans crossing the Sahara, on Sunni Ali's victories, on Askia Muhammad's pilgrimage, on Ahmad Baba's studies. The desert is quiet. The Niger flows as it always has. Tomorrow the sun will rise again, and the city will wake, and life will continue. In a library, a manuscript waits to be opened. Its pages hold the thoughts of someone long dead, copied by a scribe whose name is forgotten, preserved by families we will never know, and now available to anyone who seeks to understand. The knowledge within connects centuries, ancient wisdom still relevant, historical events still instructive, human experiences still relatable. This is what the Songhai Empire and Timbuktu's Golden Age offer us: connection across time and culture, proof of African achievement, lessons about power and its limits, testimony to the enduring value of knowledge, and hope that what seems lost might be recovered, that truth can outlast lies, that memory can defeat forgetting. The empire fell centuries ago. The Golden Age ended, but the manuscripts survive, and with them the story continues. As long as people read these books, study this history, and tell these stories, the Golden Age lives on, not in political power or material wealth, but in ideas, in knowledge, in the human commitment to learning and remembering.
And so we leave Timbuktu, city of scholars and merchants, of mud brick and manuscripts, of gold and knowledge. We leave it sleeping under desert stars, dreaming perhaps of golden ages past and futures yet to come. We leave it with gratitude for what it created, respect for what it preserved, and hope for what it might still teach us. The story of the Songhai Empire, of Sunni Ali's conquests and Askia Muhammad's reforms, of scholars studying by lamplight and caravans crossing impossible distances, of Ahmad Baba's learning and humble scribes' labor, of families preserving books through centuries of chaos. This story is not just African history, it is human history. It belongs to all of us. And like all the best stories, it reminds us who we are and who we might become. It shows us that knowledge matters, that learning endures, that what we create and preserve can outlast us. It suggests that golden ages, while rare and precious, are possible, and that even when they end, they leave traces that guide us forward. Rest now. Let the story settle into your mind. Let the images of ancient Timbuktu drift into dreams. Let the whisper of turning manuscript pages lull you to sleep. The knowledge remains. The story continues. And tomorrow, when you wake, these truths will still be there, waiting, as they have waited for centuries, as they will wait for centuries more. The Niger flows, the stars wheel overhead, the manuscripts endure, and somewhere in Timbuktu, a scholar opens a book and begins to read, connecting past to present, preserving wisdom, honoring those who came before. The golden age may have ended, but its light still shines, faintly perhaps, but undimmed by time, illuminating paths forward through knowledge of where we have been. Sleep well, the story is told. The empire rests in memory and manuscript, and in the morning, the world begins again, carrying forward the lessons of those who built cities in the desert, who valued learning above gold, who understood that the greatest wealth is wisdom shared and preserved.